Posted by you/Meta. Mara. Red. Bird. How I accidentally jumped into a different universe to avoid dying. I am a Cherokee Indian Meta, Cherokee word for prophetess. We can see and interact with spirits from birth, so tons of really awesome paranormal stuff happens to me constantly. I always say I'm so sad for people that don't believe in the true blue magic of life and reality. It's as if they only get to see life in black and white. Sad that I'm sure some people won't even believe this, and that breaks my heart. I swear on my daughter and the spirits this is 100% true and not one bit exaggerated. Anywho, I was around 16 and was with my first ever love, who unfortunately wasn't the greatest influence, and my cousin. We were getting a ride home from my ex's best friend, who was also my cousin's boyfriend, and he was on a loot of Xanax. We were weed smokers but nothing else, as I've always been a good girl, he. It was very late at night and we didn't want to bother our parents to drive an hour out to us to pick us up. Besides me being a Meta, we know the spirits always have our backs. He kept on slamming on the brakes thinking it was the clutch, which was so annoying. But the worst was when he would completely fall asleep at the wheel and we had to scream at him to wake up. We were all in the backseat. My cousin was fighting WM bad. He took Xanax again after promising not to. That's why none of us could grab the wheel. Well, fast forward and we're on the interstate and he's flying. We keep asking him to slow down, which he does, but then being on Xanax forgets and inevitably speeds up again. One time he sped up fast and fell asleep at the wheel right as a massive curve in the road happens, and of course our screams were to no avail. My ex started punching him, also to no avail, so we just screamed and braced for impact as soon as we saw the car inches from the concrete wall. As we braced, we either closed our eyes or covered our faces and screamed in terror, to then realize nothing happened. So when we all open our eyes and look, the car is going perfectly straight and we're long after the massive curve. We were so shocked and still to this day talk about it. We always wonder what really happened and what we would have seen had we not closed our eyes in terror. I really think that if any of us would have opened our eyes, we would have wrecked. I love to study a lot of quantum physics, and I think the whole wave/particle thing applies here. Only when not observing can the particle become a wave and act spooky. Posted by you/ShinyPebble77. There were two routes to choose from. I made my choice and then? Okay, so this happened about 8 years ago when I was 26. I used to cycle to and from where I was working. Before setting off home, I bundled up my jumper and clipped it onto the back of my bike, as I often did, and set off and reached a small junction that I was very familiar with. To the left was a flat path and led towards a pedestrianized area and a shop. To the right was steep and hilly and part of a busy bus route. I often chose go right because I used to love racing down the hill and felt very in control and safe on my bike. What's more, I saw a colleague in that direction and wanted to say hi/bye as I went past. So I turned to go right. The next thing I knew, everything went very bright and I was dazzled and felt a jolt as I was thrown off my bike. As I sat up, barely injured, I realized that I was on the left of the junction on the pedestrian path. Someone asked if I was okay and I said I was fine and thanked them. After inspection, I realized that the sleeve of my jumper fallen loose from its clip and it got caught in the bike chain, which had thrown me off my bike. Yet I was sure I had turned right. And if I had turned right, then my sleeve falling loose and falling off my bike would have been catastrophic, as I would have been hurtling down a hill with buses and cars. Another interesting thing is that since that event, my life changed significantly, mostly for the better. Things were not great for me at that time for various reasons, yet since then it feels like I shifted and got another chance at life. I get chills thinking about it and sometimes can't stop myself from thinking about it. I want to share this because doing so might help make some sense of this extremely fortunate but bizarre experience. Posted by you/Novi. My cat phased. I'm currently sitting in my room, unpacking, as I just got home from college. As I'm sitting on my desk arranging my computer, I look over at the door, which is to the left of me, because my cat meowed by the closed door and wants to be let out. I tell myself I'll finish my current task and let her out. I turn away and she meows again while staring at the door. I turn back to her and she gives out a large yawn, turns her head away and proceeds to walk through the door, to the hallway outside my room. I sit there for a second confused, then it hits me, she walks through the door. It was as if she just phased through in some science fiction way. I quickly got up from the chair and then I open the door and look at her and she's just licking herself, like nothing just happened, as if it's the most normal thing in the world. I bend down and touch the door where she passed through and it's completely solid, and feels and looks like my formal white-colored door. I'm sitting here freaking out because she literally walked through a solid object as if it wasn't there. Am I going crazy or did I really see that? Posted by you/GingerCakes. A couple disappeared into thin air. About 10 years ago, give or take, I took my sister to get her belly button pierced for Christmas. We got finished around 10 to 10:30 p.m. and began walking a few blocks back to my car. When we got to the first intersection, a couple was walking towards us coming from the side street on our right. The woman was wearing a really cute plaid coat and her hair was brownish/auburnish and she was gorgeous. The man was wearing a black peacoat and they were just chatting while walking. We all looked up, smiled at one another, and went back to talking amongst ourselves. Right as we got close to each other, my sister, her boyfriend and I moved closer to the curb that was on our left to make room for them because they were turning on the street towards us. As soon as all three of us moved closer to the road and looked up to smile again and say, "Sorry." We say sorry for everything and we were in their way, they were just gone. All three of us just stopped and started frantically looking around and my sister's boyfriend was like, "You guys just saw them, right? There was literally nowhere they could have gone. These were not spirits. This couple were as real as you and I." We looked up, smiled at each other multiple times, and they just disappeared into thin air. We were looking at them and blinked and they were gone. Nothing felt paranormal. I actually wondered if they were in another version of our reality losing their shit also because we disappeared at the exact same time. Posted by you/UDE. It wasn't her. To somewhat preface this story, I want to start by saying I have had a few small glitches prior to this one. Usually, I was able to explain the missing remote or phones that would reappear in obvious locations as just being overlooked. That ability to explain off these phenomenon as coincidence would suddenly change. At this point I had been a mailman in my hometown for a little over 4 years. As anyone who comes into the post office may know, when you first start out you're usually stuck on the least desirable routes. On and off for that time I was typically on the route where this glitch occurred, and had become familiar with most of the residents. At the start of the route, and like clockwork, I would pass by an elderly lady walking her dog. She was of average height, skinny, with short white hair. Her dog, whom also looked older, was a smaller beagle who wore a little pink collar. Every morning as I delivered this street's mail she would walk her dog without even slightly acknowledging me. Weeks went by where I would wave or smile as I rode past, but she never returned the gesture. I would just ride past her somewhere along the sidewalk, and when I got to her house drop off her mail, grab her outgoing, and usually place her package of presumably medicine on the porch. One day as I'm headed to the start of the street I can see, I'll call her Miss Smith, again, walking her dog. As I got closer though something seemed off. Her pace was slightly faster and her entire stride seemed more energetic. When I came down the other side of the street that she was coming up she called out to me, "Hey mailman, if you have any mail for me I'll go ahead and take it." She said all this waving and smiling. The dog, and collar, was the same, but this wasn't Miss Smith. She was slightly taller with much longer gray hair and glasses. Taken a bit back she again confirmed she would get the mail for $1,245. As I rode off I thought it was strange because I knew Miss Smith lived alone. Only her car was in the yard. Only her name was on the mail, and any time I left any other name of mail in her box she kindly wrote "Return to sender" on it. I completely chalked it up to her being a relative or caretaker and thought no more about it. That was until this new lady was there every morning, again like clockwork. For the next few days I was greeted with smiles, waves, exclamations about the beautiful weather, all while she was walking her dog. Then one morning she had medicine to sign for. I was running behind on the route and didn't see her walking down the sidewalk, so I knocked on her door. The skinnier white-haired lady didn't answer. It was the same grayish-haired lady I had been taking to for the past week answered. I said hello and that I had a package for Miss Smith to sign for and was she home. She chuckled and said I'm Miss Smith and thanked me for always getting her outgoing mail. I was stunned. This wasn't the lady that was always there in the beginning. I asked where was the other white-haired lady. She asked who? I said the other lady I used to see walking your dog? She looked confused and confirmed she lived alone and that other than her middle-aged son didn't have any visitors. Again confused, I just took it for mistaken identify, maybe a neighbor or friend. Then, the very next day, as I started my route, right along the sidewalk was a little old lady. She was of average height, skinny, with short white hair. She didn't have glasses and she was walking a little gray-haired beagle with a pink collar. As I rode past and waved she never looked up. She didn't smile, she didn't ask for the mail, and she didn't tell me how nice the weather was. I pulled into an adjacent parking lot and watched her for the next 5 minutes walk down the sidewalk, into 1245 and shut the door. Every day for the next 5 months I was on the route I never saw the gray-haired lady again. Whoever the vibrate lady was at 1245 during that week before I realized and asked questions, it wasn't her. It wasn't the Miss Smith. Posted by you/Zyle. Me. Deja vu, glitch or surreal coincidence? I heard about this subreddit through a podcast and thought it was the right place to share my story and hopefully get some good insight and opinions from people who may have experienced or know of something similar. Story: in 2012, when I was 16 years old, me and my 6 friends went to Thorpe Park, theme park here in the UK. The new ride The Swarm had just opened, so of course we were going to go straight there. We queued for about 45 minutes before being sent to the stands. I have no idea what these are called. The things you stand between waiting for the next carriage to arrive, on the second row of about 12 rows. The carriage ahead had just been loaded and a very large black dude, probably at least 6 feet 7, was placed in his seat. As the ride was about to go, an attendant came over and told this guy he was too big to ride and had to go wait outside for his party to finish the ride. Now this guy, like I sat, was absolutely huge, big afro and basically incredibly rememberable. Anyway, after we had been on the ride, I again remember seeing him outside, with his friends. They were loudly taking the piss out of him for not being allowed on, basically. Fast forward about 14 months, and we went to Thorpe Park again. I believe it was more or less the same group of friends I went with before, maybe give or take 1 or 2 people. Again, we of course went on Swarm. We waited around 45 minutes again, and were sent to the same stands again, second from the front, with my same 3 friends who came on my row the last time. As the ride was about to leave, an attendant came over and told a certain gentleman he was too big to ride. As I looked over, it was the exact same person as before. I know for an absolute fact this 6'7" humongous man was the same person. I remembered him distinctly. Everything was the same. The way he climbed out of the chair, walked off and went outside. The only thing I don't remember is whether or not it was the same attendant, as I was honestly so flabbergasted of what I was seeing. I turned to my friends and said, "What the fuck, that's the same guy from last time, in the exact situation as last time." Nobody paid much attention to me but sort of acknowledged it. Maybe nobody remembered the time before like I did? I kept going on about it for a good few minutes but nobody seemed to listen or care. By the time we got off the ride, this time he wasn't waiting with his friends. One of the things that I always found odd about this is the fact I never remembered seeing this guy in line both of the times I went. 45-minute waits each time, and I never once noticed this guy standing, where he would have been, like 30 people ahead of me. And trust me, huge afro 6'7", he would have been easily noticed. Since then, I have mentioned it maybe twice to my friends who were there and they all look at me like I was crazy or I vaguely remember something. Probably just wanting me to stop talking. I understand this may not be an exciting story for some, I'm just hoping somebody could have experienced something similar. My own assessment is it really was just the biggest coincidence, and it just so happened myself and this guy ended up going to the theme park on the same days, on the same ride at the exact same time in the exact same situation as 14 months previous. But that is near impossible, right? Posted by you/Mayfushi. We saw a guy and then he disappeared. I was going out with my friends, and we were taking the apples from random tree back in time there. As we were collecting them, we saw the boy who walked with our path forward. He looked like a 12-year-old, he wasn't looking at his phone or anything, he just walked. We didn't give it too much attention and continued on with the apples. After around 5 or 10 seconds we noticed that he was gone. We looked at the way that guy was walking, and he wasn't anywhere near us. We would have seen him going far away, but no, he disappeared in nowhere. I thought he turned and went random other way quickly, but it turned out that there was only one path here. He didn't even look at us while going, although there was 3 of us and we all saw him with my friends. We still find it weird and random how he just appeared and disappeared out of nowhere. The place we were at was actually empty and abandoned, we just decided back then to go random way from our street. Posted by you/Jeep. 2. The Beat. My coworker and I arrived at a location with no recollection of how we got there. My coworker and I responded to a help desk ticket at an office inside the back house of a large casino resort in Las Vegas. If you don't know your place in the back house, you can get lost in there very quickly. Their properties are massive. There's basically secret passages and hidden doorways. We drove out together to this property to service a machine at an office, a manager's office of the PBX room. We got inside the building, got screened by security at the door, and then walked right into the back house of this luxurious resort. We never been here before and we both forgot to ask for direction when we got in. We looked at the ticket and just proceeded as if we knew where we're going. Both of us were talking about the Doctor Strange movie the entire time and did not pay any attention to where we're going. It was like automatic, he was following me and I was following him. The next thing you know, we're right where we needed to be. We ended our chat about Doctor Strange's eyes and the end credit scene. When we got done with the job, we realized we don't know how to get back out. We had to call a security dispatch to escort us out the building. As he escorted us back to the guest parking, we started to observe the path he took. The path includes very long hallways, different turns, taking an elevator and back down an escalator, more long hallways, more turns until we finally made the exit. We both looked at each other and thought there was no way we could have walked all that path ourselves without getting lost. We remember talking the entire time about the movie as we're walking to that office, but not once did we remember ever taking those paths. Even if he led us in a different path, we couldn't recall how both of us ended up in that PBX office. This blows my mind because we both have never been there before. We've been on service calls together many times and this is the first time we worked at this property. I don't know if this counts as a glitch or some other strange phenomenon, but what an odd feeling, never experienced anything like that. We're both on lunch now and I'm taking my time to post here before I forget. Posted by you/Osti. I skipped time by blinking when I couldn't fall asleep. TLDR, I was sitting in bed on Sunday night, blinked a few times staring at my alarm clock and suddenly at fucking Wednesday when I was 22, 3 years ago, I was unable to sleep the night before a college final. It was a Sunday night, 10 p.m. and I set my alarm for 7 a.m. to go take my final at 8 a.m. the next day. It's worth noting I regularly sleep through alarms, so I have an extra loud one at the foot of my bed that automatically stops after about 15 minutes of not being snoozed or turned off, which I then have a series of alarms I set on my phone in case that doesn't wake me up. I'm a very heavy sleeper. I went to bed at 10 p.m., but a little after midnight and spending the whole time sweaty and unable to get comfortable and not tired enough to fall asleep, I sat up in bed and looked at my alarm clock. 12:16. I start to think about how much sleep I'm going to get at this point if I can fall asleep soon. I blink. 3:27? Did my alarm clock glitch or something and wasn't telling the correct time? Did I fall asleep momentarily? I check my phone on the charger next to me, it also says 3:27, so my alarm clock must be fine. It's at 100% charge now, so I take it off the charger and just set it back down. I look back at my alarm clock and think, what the hell? I blink. 4:50. I'm in disbelief, my position has not changed, I've had an unbroken train of thought this entire time and nothing has changed but the time. I blink again, 6:01. I blink again, 7 a.m. and my alarm is going off. My room is now bright and I feel like the whole night passed, but I experienced only about a minute of time passing and never once lost actual consciousness that I'm aware of, I only blinked. Here's the wild fuckery part though. I scooted to the end to turn off my alarm, grabbed my phone to look at it. It's completely dead. I plug it back in, waited a second and then turned it back on. It is now Wednesday morning, I've missed my final, and I can't account for the last 3 days. I have a bunch of texts from an angry girlfriend, emails from a concerned professor, the whole package. I can't explain how this could have happened. It's difficult for me to fall asleep, it usually involves closing my eyes, waiting a long time of thinking and position changes and then eventually I just wake up without remembering how I feel asleep. It was like I sat up in bed, slept away random intervals of time without knowing I'm falling asleep until eventually one of my alarms managed to wake me up days later. I wasn't hungry, my arms didn't hurt from sitting up in bed for literally days, didn't need to use the restroom. It's by far the strangest thing to ever happen to me.